Good morning, Madonna. How are you? Long time no see.
Absolutely. It's been a while since we've done this together, Kay.
It is.
It is.
So, how you been? You been good?
Been really well, very, very busy.
Very busy?
It's always a good thing.
Yeah, it's always a good thing, yes. Better to be busy than not busy.
Absolutely.
So what are we talking about today?
Well, I thought we'd start off this morning because it's all over the news. It's going to be the worst flu season ever. Have you ever heard that before?
No. I hear that quite often. I'm forever being told by my doctor, I'm going to give you your flu injection.
Yes.
And I go, really? Do I really have to have it? She said, yes. And I go, no. And then all of a sudden, she goes, it's all over.
You're a brave girl.
Oh, no, I've actually got a phobia of needles.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I've probably got it for different reasons, but yes, I have a huge needle phobia. It's not one of my favourite things. But I thought, obviously they work in two different ways. The flu vaccine compared to how we boost immunity naturally. So they're sort of two different concepts, and a lot of people don't respond very well to the flu vaccine, or they don't respond to antibiotics. So they're more looking, naturopathically towards prevention rather than, preventing the individual strain of the flu, which is what the flu vaccines are all about. So Georgia and I were chatting about it at lunchtime yesterday. Georgia is our other naturopath kinesiologist. And we were sort of saying that there are some really, really good herbs that help to do several things.
Right.
Now, for a start, one of the things you might know about antibiotics is that antibiotics work more towards bacteria. So when we get a bacterial infection like staph or strep or E. coli or salmonella or something like that, antibiotics are generally the way that doctors will go because they kill bacteria, so that makes sense. But when we get the flu and you take antibiotics don't do anything for the flu.
Don't they usually sort of say when you get the flu that you just go to bed and just drink plenty of fluids and rest?
That's right, because the antiviral drugs that they give, if you think about in the 80s when AIDS started coming out, and all the drugs like AZT and things like that, they are drugs that are antiviral, but they have huge side effects, which is why medically they don't like putting us on antiviral drugs if they don't have to, because the side effects are really quite big. So therefore, unless someone has something really, really nasty and they're bedridden and, they sort of try to avoid that. So when we are, the best cure for the flu is just looking after yourself. Hot teas, chicken soups, lots of sunshine if you can, staying warm, doing whatever you need to do to sort of, to get over it, because the incubation sort of period and the amount of time, it doesn't seem to matter what people do. It's 4 to 10 days.
Right.
And of course, the more intervention we do, the longer it can last. So for example, a lot of people start doing things like taking, say cold and flu tablets, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Now that often suppresses some of the symptoms. So, it can say unclog your nose, it can get rid of the mucus in your lungs and go, wow, this is really great, but the mucus is back 24 hours later. And then you sort of think, well, is the mucus gone? Have I created more? What's it actually done? Sometimes the mucus is actually suppressed. So it's gone to the lower lobes of the lungs, or it's been shrunk. So it's actually still there, we just can't feel it as much. So when we are looking at that, you sort of go, well, what have we done there? Sometimes the lungs get worse and worse year after year. Do you know anyone with like pleurisy or bronchiectasis or any of those fun lung problems?
Well, me personally.
Oh, okay.
I have to have a pneumonia injection.
Right.
Because I can start off, I get sometimes very, very bad sinus, and that's it's just, I can't even open my eye, I can't be in anything, light splashing at me or anything.
Right.
And then it sort of goes, if I don't get it in time, it runs down to the back of my throat and gets onto my chest.
Yes.
And my doctor is very, very thorough, and she gives me, you can't go in, because I've had pneumonia 4 times.
Wow, goodness me.
Yeah, and each time you get it, your lungs get weaker.
Yes.
But I think I was living in Casino at the time, and I got bronchial pneumonia and pleurisy together.
Oh, goodness.
And I thought I was going to die, but
that sort of feels like you're drowning and can't breathe,
And they gave me this, I had to go I was in hospital for 21 days.
Oh, goodness.
And they gave me this black stuff, and it just smelled like ether. And I had to drink it, but every time I drank it, I just brought all the gunk up.
Yeah, okay.
But, it was frightening. So
yeah.
I have to be very careful.
And I think one of the things to realise so thinking about that, you can imagine medically they would have done whatever they needed to do.
At that time, because that was the 80s.
So maybe they might have, who knows, they might have used steroids to sort as an anti-inflammatory. They might have used antibiotics just to sort of kill the infection. They might have done oxygenation therapy. So depending on the doctor and who you had at the time. So thinking about that sort of thing, there are actually herbs that tone the lungs.
Oh, right.
So one of the, so things like elecampane. Elecampane is a herb that the longer we take it, because there's short-term use for things and then long-term use for things.
Yeah.
So short-term, if you get something like pneumonia or bronchiectasis or bronchitis, when you're taking lung herbs like mullein and elecampane, they not only get all the gunk up off the chest, so when you're coughing, it's a useful cough. Because how often do you cough and nothing comes up? And you know something's there because you've got that racking cough and you can't stop it. What often happens is that the little there's like little villi, through the intestines, the villi that so there's similar little things in the lungs, and when the mucus gets too thick and heavy, they can't bring the mucus up off the lungs.
Oh, right.
So the herbs help to break down that gunge so that the lungs can work better, so that you start getting a productive cough again.
Okay.
So there's lots of combinations out there in herbal medicine world that actually help to tone the lungs long term.
Yeah, right.
So, and once herbs do not taste nice, they just don't. It's just one of those things. If you see a herbalist, you'll have to suck it up, princess, and go, okay, I know this isn't going to taste very nice for the next little while. But bit by bit, the lungs improve.
Yeah.
Another thing that's really important is good old vitamin D. So basically, they did a study in North America. You know how in North America, that's the cold belt.
Yes,
they get the real freezing bit up there. So they looked at vitamin D levels and the amount of pneumonia in the upper part of the USA compared to the lower part. And they found that there was heaps more cold flu, pneumonia, bronchitis in the upper part of the USA compared to the bottom. They looked at vitamin D levels and what they found was vitamin D was way too low. Now, one of the things that happens again as we get older, our receptors on our cell membranes for vitamin D get blocked.
Right.
So either they're getting worn out or they're getting toxic or they're becoming unusable, but whatever it is, we don't have as many receptors for vitamin D. So basically that means you actually need more in your diet, so vitamin D is in things like your oily fish and your eggs and things like that, your meats. So vitamin D and good old sunshine.
Yes,
and especially in winter,
Well, we don't really have a winter.
No, but even when you get outside in winter, we only have our fingers and our face uncovered, don't we?
Oh,
so,
yes,
there's not a lot of our skin coverage that even gets it.
Yeah.
So what we need during winter is, especially if we know we've got lung issues, when you get your vitamin D checked by the doctor, he'll be looking at 50 as being the base level. And then medically they just go, yep, you're fine. But if you have a pre-existing lung condition, you really should be looking for 80 to 120 for your vitamin D levels.
Oh, right, okay.
Because it gives you heaps more protection.
Yeah.
Every lung cell requires vitamin D to function.
Yeah, well, I take vitamin D tablets every morning.
So do you know what your level was last time you got checked at the doctor?
I'm due for a complete
blood test.
Blood work.
So once again, just think about aiming for 100, not 50, and it sounds like your doctor's really good. So hopefully she'll be on top of that. So it's and then if people have autoimmunity as well, you need even to be aiming higher than that.
Yeah.
So people with autoimmune disease like rheumatoid arthritis or any of the Hashimoto's or Graves' disease thyroid problems or even things like nephritis in the kidney. So if you've got any autoimmune disease, you really should be aiming to more like 150 with vitamin D, because vitamin D is a hormone producer as well as an immune modulator and does a huge amount of stuff.
All right, well, we'll take a short break and we will come back and talk some more.